Chris, thank you so much for joining us for our fundraising event. Help us raise some money to keep our work going. We really appreciate the support.
Yes, I just drove across all of Nevada to be here.
Well,
Primarily because of the 1971 legislation, which mandates that they be treated as fauna on public lands. So they're a public lands issue. And it's as simple as that. I mean, but I also included I really included your story, Laura, and the story of trying to change things at Battle Mountain because it was indicative of how difficult it is to change the culture of BLM, to change the ranching-centric culture, a culture that considers wild horses to be pests, parasites, range roaches, and that was a very dramatic story. I mean, your personal arc and then how that related to your experience on public lands defending wild horses. I think it's important that people see that individuals can make a difference on public lands, and that that one person can really change things for the better, even on a small scale, even if it's just protecting one herd that needs protection, and advocating for still another herd over there that is under threat of roundup or field gelding, which sounds just horrific. So those are among the reasons that I include wild horses. I also think wild horses are kind of beautiful, and of course there's a whole debate out there among ecologists of whether they're a native species. I didn't really get into that because I didn't have time in the book to do so. The book is not about wild horses; it's about public lands.
from so many of our readers, thank you for giving wild horses their place in the conversation.
The terms conservation and preservation are often used interchangeably, but they shouldn't because they mean two very different things. You could say that the great majority of environmental nonprofits today, what they call gangrene, that these are all conservation outfits because their view is that nature is to be conserved for human use and utility. Preservation hardly exists today in the environmental movement. Preservation means
and even an understanding of what the word itself means.
The word itself, as we noted just a moment ago, the word itself is meaningless because it's used interchangeably with conservation. Preservation means that you preserve landscapes, biota, flora, fauna, the whole living ecosystem, as is, not for human use, without human intervention, except to say that we're not going to intervene. Purposely confusing conservation with preservation is a form of greenwashing. So what is greenwashing? Greenwashing is an active deception whereby you create a veneer of environmental good over something that is environmentally bad.
And
that's greenwashing.
So why these organizations that do greenwashing are so popular? Is it because they're feeding people's need for a magic wand solution?
Absolutely, yes. So greenwashing, for example, the Alan Savory holistic grazing method, that's a form of greenwashing because you can preserve grazing while pretending that it's beneficial to ecosystems and the environment.
While you continue to destroy that
While you continue practices that ultimately are not beneficial to.
But you've sold somebody a nice pamphlet that looks good.
You greenwash. Presumably, we will
solve
massively solve it. Carbon, what it's called. You know what climate scientists call it? Climate scientists who question, for example, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's vision for how we're going to get through this mess. They call these technological solutions, whether it be solar, photovoltaic, renewable build-out, or direct air capture of carbon, or bioenergy and carbon capture and storage. These are all very expensive, high-tech solutions that that these critics refer to as carbon unicorns. Carbon unicorns. They're going to dance.
Well, we could throw Alan Savory in there too, which a lot of people are very. That's a topic again because the New York Times just did a piece that we need more cattle to help sequester carbon into our public lands. Which it's a unicorn.
Yeah, I did a piece years ago for Sierra Magazine, looking at Savory's claims and found them to be just baseless. I actually spent time with Savory at his very nice home in Albuquerque, and very gentlemanly guy. He spent hours with me, talking. Holistic grazing management, or whatever it's called, is like it's herpes, man. It never goes away. It just keeps on coming back. And all right, so I was at a place called until noon today. I was at a place called Thacker Pass, which is 20 miles west of Orovada in northwestern Nevada, where a protest has arisen against the proposed lithium mine there. The mine is, if it happens, planned for BLM land, and the BLM has been very accommodating with the company that wants to build the mine. Lithium
Big surprise.
Very, very, very accommodating, to the point that critics are wondering, whether there have been violations of federal law and regulatory law and the agency's own mandate to fully vet and explore the environmental impacts of mining projects. So, as you've documented many times over, the BLM seems to be most easily convinced by mining companies that their operations will do no harm whatsoever. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all going to be peace on earth.
I've heard BLM calls the livestock industry their customers and the mining industry their clients.
Right. Which is the origin of the old joke that BLM stands for the Bureau of Livestock and Mining. Right? All right. So in this case, however, this is a mine for lithium, and so it has a whole different environmental cast, if you will. The Green New Deal, take one aspect of the supposed renewable energy transition that we're to be entering into in coming years, is dependent on a massive increase in mining of all sorts of metals and minerals and rare earths to build out a renewable energy system based on primarily on photovoltaics, solar power, and wind farms, wind harvest. And so one of the key metals necessary is the so-called white gold of lithium. And the idea, as presented by proponents of the Green New Deal, is that, well, if we're mining for minerals and metals and rare earths that go into the production of renewable energy machines and systems, then that mining is somehow green. However, the people I was interviewing at Thacker Pass, whose protest is called simply Protect Thacker Pass.
And people can find it online, protectthackerpass.org.
Yes. They will tell you, and they were just telling me for the past 72 hours, that that there is no such thing as green mining. That that all mining involves destruction of habitat and wildlife corridors, and the wiping out of the living soil and the biome and all that depends on that biome. So there's no such thing as green mining. So this lithium mine will be 11 miles from east to west, and something like 4 miles from north to south across Thacker Pass, which is a beautiful high elevation. It was very beautiful, very beautiful. I stayed in my tent, just camping with the protesters for, as I said, for 3 days, and I slept very well. I slept very well. Very the quiet and the smell of the sagebrush, the sweet and sharp, sweet pungency of the sage.
It's one of the greatest smells in the world.
One of the greatest smells in the world. It was really just something else. And I haven't been back in Nevada. I've been in Nevada in a long time, primarily because of COVID, and also just because I hate flying. I like staying in the Catskills. I don't like leaving. I don't like leaving my house. So being back in the West is it's rejuvenating to smell that sagebrush again.
Chris, we've known each other for a while, but I've never asked you this question. Why did you become an environmental writer? What brought you in this direction?
Well, because in journalism, you are not often afforded the chance to write poetically about your subjects while also engaging in political investigation. So there's a marriage in environmental writing between a poetic appreciation of aesthetic values, of wild places, wild things, of our non-human brothers and sisters out there. And you can do that while also investigating, understanding, undermining the political systems that threaten our wild brothers and sisters and the landscapes that they depend on. There's the inspiration. There is definitely inspiration there, but it's beyond that. It's that writing about nature is inherently a joyful experience, as opposed to writing about, I don't know, congressional testimony.
Oh, well, sometimes you're doing both, right? When you're writing about
exactly, but it's not just the congressional testimony. It's not just the investigative side. It's not just the politics of. It's not just the political systems that that are the problem, right? And all articles, there's a problem that you're trying to solve. There's a problem you're exposing, right? And the problem is usually that human beings are making a mess of things. But let's say they're making a mess of the sagebrush sea of the Great Basin. There's always some space in that article, in that mess, to write about the tendrils of the new shoots of sagebrush in springtime, and the way they tremble in the wind, and the way they evoke the surface of the sea and the vast distances of the ocean that you seem to be seeing when you're at a rise or a high point looking out across the wildernesses of Nevada. I moved to Utah in 2006.
2006.
I lived there in 2006 and 2007.
But you grew up on the East Coast.
I grew up in Brooklyn. Yeah, urban. I grew up straight urban. And but my mother had the foresight to take me every summer to a little plot of land that she still owns, in the deeps of the forest of the Catskill Mountains.
So instilled the love of nature early.
Yes,
But the West was 2006?
yes. The West was late in life. Yeah.
Where are you headed from here?
Back east to Utah to finish the story I'm working on about recreation in Moab, southern Utah. Moab, which has been just assaulted by the enormous influx of visitation, tourism, and recreationists.
And COVID-19 has made it worse.
Yeah, it's COVID-19 made it worse. And then from there, headed home, back to my daughter, back east.
And you're going to finish your book.
And I'm going to finish my next book. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Chris. And
You're very welcome.
And it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. Yeah, right on.